Welcome to tonight's live. And I say tonight because normally we are in the afternoon, but this is a special session with Jenny Stevens, who is the founder of She's EmpowHERed. Am I saying that right? She's
Yes.
EmpowHERed conference, or it's a virtual summit that I'm a part of. And when we did my preparation for my little part in the summit, I was like, I got to have you on my show. There's so much brilliance you need to be sharing. And so that is why I have Jenny here today. So welcome. Awesome to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is absolutely just an absolute treat and my privilege to be here and just really excited for our conversation. We had such a great conversation for our interview for the summit, and I just know it's going to be amazing tonight too.
Well, and we should talk about the summit. I want to talk a little bit later on because I have lots of
Yes.
questions. Because I know there are so many experts. Like, are there 20? Are there 20 events or like that are happening as part of the summit, or how many are there?
So including yourself, there's going to be 26 speakers. So
Wow.
26 experts that are all sharing on their area of expertise, which is just phenomenal, and everybody has their own take on all the different topics we cover, and really it's about women's empowerment and just there's so much goodness in there. I don't even know where to start and stop here.
Okay, so not only do I have so much to talk to you about building a
Yes.
side hustle and managing the job and all of that, I want to now
Mhm.
add, how do you handle and organize 26 speakers?
Oh my
Because
goodness.
I
So
know it's crazy. But Lori's here. She's watching live on LinkedIn. She said, great to meet you,
Lori.
Jenny. So awesome to have you here with us, Lori. So let's start with what you do as your day job, because I think a lot of people are seeing people like me who are content creators, and we, earn our money speaking and sharing our, knowledge, right?
Mhm.
And go, oh, but I have this big job and I don't want to leave it, right? And you really can do both. So, what are you doing during the day so people get a sense of that?
Sure, that's a great question. So during the day, I actually work for the court system here in the United States, and I get to do all sorts of things. We go into court with our judges. We do filing when we're back in the office, and one of the things that I'm absolutely thrilled about doing is organizing the naturalization ceremonies that we do in the state I live in, which I'm in South Dakota. So it's one of my it's where we get to have happy court is what we call it, because everybody leaves the courtroom happy or leaves the ceremony very happy. So
So, how do you get through that and not like be crying? Like, I'd be like,
oh,
happy tears the whole way, right? Like, you bring on the mascara.
exactly. Oh my gosh, it's an absolute honor to be able to do it. And the judge that I work with is just phenomenal. And she goes, would you like to give the oath to our new citizens? And I'm like, I would be honored to. So for me, it's just like, I get to have them raise their right hand and then I give them the oath of allegiance. And it's like, when you get done, it's really hard. It's like, okay, I don't have to say anything after after I give the oath. Otherwise I'd probably get choked up. So
Yeah, yeah, thank goodness, right? But what
right.
important work. And so your role there is very much about, like, that's a big piece of it, right? An organization. Is that a natural skill set for you?
It's funny you should ask that. Like it was one thing where I didn't know I had the skill set until I started to do it more and more. And then we're like, okay, well, what does it look like if we go from being in the courtroom where we can do about 40 people and we take it to a bigger venue and we do like 200 or more? And that kind of developing and honing that skill set was just kind of remarkable, actually, because it was a lot of feedback, talking to the different groups and organizations that come and help celebrate, talking to the people at the venue. And it's just, and then making sure everybody's happy. Like we have our keynote speakers and everybody that comes and attends as a guest or as an applicant becoming a citizen. So there's a lot of moving parts, but at the end of the day, it's just very fulfilling.
So you're already working this world.
Mhm.
So how did you ultimately decide that you wanted to become, have this side hustle and develop She's
Mhm.
EmpowHERed?
Yeah. So, and that's another great question. So you know how like sometimes you feel like there's kind of like a tapping on your heart, and it's like there's something more you're meant to do in this life. And for me, that came a number of years ago, and I kind of would dabble, and then I'd come back, go back to my comfort zone, and then I'd dabble again, and then I'd go back. Well, a couple of years ago, I finally said yes to the calling that's been placed on my life, and it has just been quite a journey, just to start it, to know that I'm on the right path, and then ultimately to kind of switch gears about 3/4 of the way through and really find out what I'm truly aligned with. So it's been amazing to like know that, and just that you're meant to do that kind of work when it really fills your bucket. And if you think about your life as like a bucket, and you want to be able to overflow and pour joy out to the world, you've got to have those things that really fill it. So that's what I've found with this side hustle that I do.
Right. And so, but you just sort of dropped that, like you had to switch gears.
Yes.
Okay. So explain that. What happened?
Okay. So oh God, it would have been about a year ago. I was organizing my first event, and this was my first event for myself, for my business. And it was a summit just like what we're doing today. And what I did was I was going down kind of this health and wellness path, thinking that that's where I was meant to be serving. And I created a summit. It was great. It was a wonderful experience. It really stretched me. But at the end of it, I'm just like, wow, it didn't fill me up like I thought it was going to, because I had this idea that that's what it would turn into, and it wasn't like that. So I'm like, well, that's interesting. And then I got curious about it, and it's like, okay, well, if this isn't quite the path I'm supposed to be on, it's got to be close. And that's kind of where I was going through a leadership course, and what came up for me was, it's like, what are you really passionate about? I'm like, well, I'm passionate about empowering women and helping them, start developing those confidence muscles and being able to take their life in the direction that they truly want to have it go in. And that really opened up a lot more for me. And I'm like, okay, so what does that look like? And that's kind of where this summit was born from, was from really figuring that out and switching gears to go in a direction that now I feel like it doesn't feel like work. It's fun. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, but I'm loving the process.
Right. And so that, because I think a lot of times people get into something and they have this big vision of, this is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to be awesome. Yeah. Right, in my life. And then they kind of get to the goal and they're like, but like it wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be. And I'm curious how you wrestled with that, right? Because I would think that would be very disappointing.
Yes. And I'm not going to lie, I'll be fully transparent with you. When I had my first couple of events, I didn't realize it at the time what it was that I was feeling. And it was like, okay, what is this that's going on? And for me, it was really having to take a step back and look at what I had created and saying, okay, this is good. I created something awesome, and it helped a lot of people. And even though it's helping a lot of people, it's not feeling aligned with me. And just being able to go, okay, so what am I going to do next? And
so how do you, because like there's this thing, I think a lot of people would be like, it's helping a ton of people.
Yeah.
And I'm not fulfilled, but I need to do it anyway. Like, have you seen this with people? Look at me just leaning back, listening. I'm like, okay, let's chat. Because I think that happens, and especially I dare say to women, where we almost feel like obligated to keep going on a path because we said we were, and people are happy, and. What do you think it was in you that allowed you to actually go, no, I'm not going to give in to that?
Yeah. And so me, a big part of me is like, I really like to support people. So it was difficult. It was difficult to make that decision to go, okay, I'm going to switch gears and go a new direction because I'm realizing that I'm not aligned. And knowing that for me to feel fulfilled, the more I can fill my bucket, the more I'm able to pour out and or essentially overflow. And what I was realizing was I was feeling like I was pouring from an empty cup. And when you're pouring from an empty cup, you're, even though maybe the work that you were doing when you thought you were pouring from a full cup is making a difference in one area, it's not sustainable. And that's what I really had to come to grips with, was what I had created wasn't sustainable for me to do. For someone else, it would probably fill them up to no end. And for me, it wasn't. And I got to look at that and go, okay, so if this is how I'm feeling, then I get to pause, I get to step back, and I get to reflect, I get to celebrate those wins, and I get to find out what is it that I'm meant to be doing. So it was, it definitely was a difficult thing, because it almost feels like it's like, oh, I almost felt like I was giving up. But then I'm like, no, I'm not giving up. I'm letting go of what it looks like here, so that I can reach for what it's going to look like when I'm feeling fulfilled, when my bucket is being filled, and when I can actually overflow it.
Wow. Yeah. And I just don't know if people have enough awareness
Mm-hmm.
of, this isn't filling my cup.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you see that among your peers of people who are running summits and doing this kind of work and trying to create that online business? I think there's a lot of, well, how do I say this? A lot of industry that says, oh, you're going to make 7 figures and you're going to do, and it's so easy. And you just pull it all together. And it's like, no, it's not. And I'm going to call BS on a lot of this stuff, right? And so I think a lot of times people get into it and they're doing something and they're like, oh my gosh, I put so much work into this. I don't want to give it up.
Right.
Because this is the holy grail that people are want to be able to have a successful summit.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right. And it's interesting, because what I see even with some of my peers is, they're creating something and then life happens. And sometimes it's easier to just give up or put it on the back burner, put it on hold. And it's like, oh, but and for me, I couldn't do that. It was one of those things. And I think it's going to be different for each person, because some are going to be ready to just go full steam ahead. Right. And they're going to take the bull by the horns, and they're going to get it all done, start to finish, and continue it afterwards, because they're so on fire. They've found that big vision. They've connected with a really big why that's bigger than themselves, and they're able to really just keep going. They get momentum and they keep it. And then we have some of us where, we've got some limiting beliefs we struggled with, right? Because I know I did. My first summit, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, who am I to even like reach out to people, to like talk to people, to say like, hey, would you give me your time? This amazing resource that we have a limited amount of. So, I mean, I struggled through a lot of that, but I'm like, you know what? The vision is bigger than myself. So I get to get out of my head and into my heart, and I get to pursue this, even though I know it's a lot of work. So you've got kind of both extremes.
Right. And then, so that take your foot off the gas, that self-sabotage, that limiting belief, how did you overcome it? Because it's one thing to have a big vision and be like, I'm going to push for that. I can't tell you the number of people who are like, oh, I've always wanted to write a book.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be a speaker. And I'm like, and what's holding? Oh, no, I can't. Yeah, actually you could. Right. And it's like, I don't want to say scared, because I'm not scared, but I'm concerned that there are a lot of really talented people who are holding themselves back due to these limiting beliefs. And I just want to like shake them in a nice, gentle, beautiful, non-violent way and say, like, it's time for you to step into your brilliance. Like, just go for it. Right. And it's so hard, but like, how do you see yourself or maybe some of the people you've worked with and your colleagues like overcoming that? Like, how do you push through it when you're like, who am I to do this? And I'm going to do it. Cause there's like
Mhm.
somewhere in the middle.
Right.
Yeah. That's going one way or the other. Do you have any ideas or advice on that?
Sure. So for me, I know that when I kind of hit that wall, when I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can push through this. I will, I had a coach. So I'll let you all know I had a coach, and he'd tell me like, okay, it's time to get this done. You get to stand in integrity with yourself, with your speakers. And this was for that first event. And I'm like, whoa, I don't even know what that feels like. Like, what does that look like? We're two different personality types. How do I flex into that? And so he kind of helped kind of nudge me forward. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I get to decide for myself. I get to decide that I'm a yes. I get to decide that no matter what, I get to create something amazing. And I get to show my kids that it's possible. I get to show my friends and family what's possible. And that to me became so expansive. I'm like, okay, like game on, it's happening.
That's all that. I'm in the game. I'm in the
I'm
game.
in the game. Coach put me in. So
How do your kids, because you do have kids, right?
yes.
And you have a lot of other things on the go, right? Like you run a
Mm-hmm.
book club and you've got these other things you can, I think there's a lot of stuff. How do
Mm-hmm.
you reconcile that with your kids? Because I think sometimes women
Mm-hmm.
will discount their dreams
Mm-hmm.
in order to serve their kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I feel like you
Yes.
could do both because some women do it really, really well.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's really being kind of a both and, right?
Okay.
Um, so for me, it's like, okay, what am I passionate about? What is it that I want to be doing that's going to fill my cup? Because when my cup is full and I'm overflowing, I can give more to my kids. I can be connected with them in the moment, and we can have beautiful moments together. And I even tell my kids that I'm like, hey, I've got a half hour right now that is 100% free. It is all yours. What would you love to do? And we'll sit down and we'll connect. We'll play a game. We'll, if they want to watch a movie, do karaoke, dance party, like I'm in. And we just have fun. And sometimes like my oldest, he's like, will you play video games with me? And I'm like, I'm probably not going to do very well, but I'm all in. It's like I will do my best.
Oh, that's awesome. And then they're learning the time management too, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're learning to chase a dream and here's what
Mm-hmm.
discipline looks like, right? So it
Right.
really is uh, a win-win in so
Mm-hmm.
many different ways, right?
Yeah.
In the summit. So okay, first
Mm-hmm.
of all, when is the summit happening? What are the dates for the full event?
Yes. So the summit is happening. It's all virtual. So if you have an internet connection, you can get on and hear all the amazing interviews. And it starts with we're releasing about 2 to 3 videos a day, and it starts on Monday, April 11th. And you'll be able to see the first 2 interviews, and then each day you'll get 2 or 3 more Monday through Friday, and it wraps up on April 22nd. And there's so many amazing topics that we cover during this series. Oh,
Yeah,
awesome. And
so
Allison just dropped the link.
I did. I put my link in there. So if you go there, you can,
Mm-hmm.
you can register for free, right? Like there's no
Oh, yeah.
charge. Now you can upgrade
Right.
for $27 or something. I think it was very
Mm-hmm.
reasonable. And we're
Yes.
going to have like chats with the speakers and things like that.
Yes.
So I'm really encouraging it because I've looked at some of the other speakers who are part of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, like, what was your favorite? I'm going to take me out of the running. Tell us about some of your favorite interviews or learnings. I know
Sure.
it through the summit because you've done all the interviews so far.
Yes, I think I've just got maybe one more that we're going to get recorded before everything goes live. But it's really funny that you should ask that question, because I have pulled different nuggets of just inspiration, tools, strategies from each and every speaker. And some of my favorites that I've been putting into place, like there's one where, it's like, okay, take 5 minutes, right? Take 5 minutes in the morning for yourself and let your thoughts come up and face them and kind of play whack-a-mole with them. You don't have to judge them. You just say, oh, judgment, there you are. I'm, it's interesting that you showed up today. Yeah. And for me, that's been like really eye-opening. It's brought up a lot of things that I've been able to really look at and go, oh, okay, so this is what's going on. And I had another gal that we talked about building a community, building a tribe of your people that really support you, collaborate with you, champion you. Man, there's been so much good stuff. And one of the most profound things that I actually shared in an interview I recently recorded was it was more like an introspective thing that came up for me while I was talking to her. I'm like, wow. So just picture this for a moment, that you're wanting to do something that's really profound, that's really amazing in your life. And you really want to be there for your family, for your friends. And you're just like, man, I don't know what that looks like. For me, the coolest thing was I'm looking at it as, okay, the woman that I want to be 3 years from now, that woman exists. And what would she look at me and say, Jenny, this is what you get to do today. This is who you're going to be because I'm already here. And this is the advice I'm going to share with you today. And when I started thinking about that, I'm like, whoa, that's like super, that like landed for me in a whole new way. I'm like, wow. So the person that I'm building today, the work that I'm doing on myself today is building the woman that's looking back at me going, you've already got it. You've got it inside you. You just got to let it out. And the woman that you're going to become in 3 years, she's already here. And you just get to step into her every day. So I'm like just reconciling that every day now. And I'm just like, ooh, there's a lot of momentum that comes with that realization. So I want to encourage anyone who's like, I have a big dream, to just start going for it. Step by step, layer by layer, you're building yourself into the woman or the man that gets to accomplish that goal, that gets to accomplish that dream. And then it'll be the next big dream, the next big goal, because you're never done.
Yeah, I've done a lot of reading on growth mindset. I don't know if you ever follow Tom Bilyeu. He's from Impact Theory, and he does a ton of interviews, but he has this reading list. So the top 25 mindset books you need to read if you want to really excel. And so last year I went through the books. I didn't finish them all because I started reading other books. So I guess I have to go back to the list. I have like 4 or 5, I think, left. Anyway, it was all about this growth mindset and how we need to love the journey and not judge the outcome.
Right.
And it's like, can you embrace this? And like you said, like step into the brilliance, because when you reach that goal, there's going to be another one. And so often we get so like deflated after we reach a goal. And like for you, how it was like, yeah, I didn't really love that. It didn't light me up. And if we can just prepare for that and be like, yeah, it doesn't matter if I loved the destination. It's like I did all of the stuff and was totally present on the journey, right? Yeah. Which sounds so cliche, but it's so critically important.
Well, and one thing that I'll add to that is just it's really funny because you look at your journey and it's like the juice is in the journey. If all you're concerned about is the destination, you're not enjoying the juice. And like if you've ever cooked like a pot roast or anything like that, like that's the tasty stuff that's there. It's the juice. So that's really, when you're looking at the journey, it's like the juice is really in the journey. So
yeah. So I did say at the beginning, I want to ask you about how you actually managed to organize 26 speakers for a summit. Like that's a lot of moving parts. Do you have a specific way that you do this? For others who might be wanting to put together a big event or do something like what's your secret sauce to make that work?
Sure. So the secret sauce really is to know, to get clear on what kind of event you're creating. So if you're looking at it going, holy smokes, 26 speakers, that is bananas. then I want to just invite you to say, okay, well, what does it look like if you just did 10 speakers and you did a live series and you just had all, 10 speakers come on with you in a day, and you just had it be one day, and maybe you just do 4 speakers to start with. Make it small and start building your confidence, because it gets easier each time you go. So for me with 26 speakers, it was okay, well, you get the first yes, and then you get them all the information that they're going to need so that they can be a successful speaker for you. And then what I do that works really well is I request referrals, because I have so many great first conversations with people. Like Allison, you and I had an amazing first conversation, and like it'll be 15 minutes, and I think we talked for way longer than 15 minutes.
We totally did. Yes.
We totally did. And you think about it, it's like, okay, when you know that somebody is like aligned with you and you're just like, wow, I've got a really great feeling about this person, then you just say, hey, do you know of anyone who might be really great? I'm looking for a speaker on this specific topic, or maybe a range of topics. And 9 times out of 10, somebody pops into their mind like that. Yes. And then they connect you, right? And you just kind of keep building it kind of brick by brick. And like I set up a Calendly link so that I could get all my interviews scheduled for times that I knew worked for me. And it's quite a process. So I'm not going to lie, there are a lot of moving parts. I won't be able to hit all of them, but the main thing is just, what is your intention? Is it truly, is it to serve people? Is it to educate? What is that? What is the intent? And then kind of don't worry so much about the mechanics. Start looking for the people, right? Start looking for the people that you would love to have on that event with you, that you feel would align with the messaging you're wanting to come across.
Very cool. And actually, it was a referral that brought us together, because Linda Fisk, who is, the founder of Lead Hership Global, you both have hers in your words, right? And you must have asked her, do you know anybody else who'd be great for the summit? And then she connected us, and away we went. So that was, see, you're living what you teach.
I know.
Living what you teach. Yep. That's awesome.
And that's what you got to do.
So do you think that some people are sitting there at corporate doing their job like you're doing your job, 8 to 4, 9 to 5, whatever it is, and holding themselves back because it's going to be too much? Like, how do you deal with that?
Sure. So like for an event like what I'm doing today, I give myself 90 days from start to finish to complete everything. So if you're thinking you don't have 90 days, what can you create in, 30 days, 60 days? Because really it's about starting to just take small action. And, the very beginning of doing something like this, the scariest part, if you're like me, is like reaching out to people. Because really those first few phone calls, I probably had a very shaky voice because I'm talking to people that, said, yeah, I'd love to hear more. Okay, great. Let's get on a call. And then I got on those first couple of calls and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is uncomfortable. But, you get comfortable being uncomfortable. Right. And then you start to find people that have like the same heart as you. And they're just like, wow, I want you to succeed, because the message you're wanting to bring to the world is so needed right now. And you just find the few people that'll champion you. And I found tons of them through this process that I'm doing right now. Just like tons of people where they're like, I love this. And it's like, yes.
Well, and that's when you're aligned, right? Because it just goes in flow. Like, it's so simple to have it come together. Not simple, like, not to suggest it isn't behind the scenes, a lot of organization, a lot of pieces of the puzzle, but simple in terms of you don't have to fight uphill. I love that you give yourself a 90-day window.
Yes.
Because a lot of times projects like this can be like, okay, next year. And then you just spend the year consumed with it, right? Whereas, I once had a friend who got engaged and was going to have a wedding. Obviously, that's what happens once you get engaged. And she called me about 48 hours before. So the midnight before the 48 hours, she's like, I'm like, how's it going? And she's in tears. She goes, it's awful. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She said, well, I don't have anything organized. And I thought, like any bride, she meant, a few little things. She literally had the venue. That was it. Like a venue. Like nothing else. Like it was like DJ decorations. Like it was nutty. And in 48 hours, I planned her wedding, and nobody would have known. But I was like, you know what? This is, and I'm not an event planner. I just have been doing enough events, and back then I did more event work. But this shrinking the amount of time that you have to do something is really, really powerful, right? Because it can just consume your days. How do you manage your energy though? Because you've got to, like, most people come home from work and they're like, I'm done. Yeah. And then you got to get lit up to go do something else. Like, how do you deal with that?
Oh my gosh. So I will say it is a ton when you really manage your mindset, when you're really building those tools, those muscles, it gets so easy to get fired up. Like seriously, I could go upstairs and like have a dance party with my kids right now. I am so pumped. I have been looking forward to this all day long. So I was just probably really annoyingly joyful at work today because I was just really excited. And it's like when you're doing what you love, when you're looking forward to those things that really light you up, the energy is there. You can have as much energy as you want. You just claim it. You say, I'm going to be energized right now. Like, this is awesome. Like, look at this life that I'm living. It's like a dream. And you love every minute of it.
Yeah. And you know what? That is exactly right. And here Jake is watching. He's saying, great information. So well done. And I know Jake has been very enterprising in his career. So, yeah, So I know there are people who are watching on the chat, and I forgot to, we lost one of our feeds. I think Twitter. So okay, well, sorry, Twitter people. Who are
because feedback is so amazing.
Did you keep going? Because I cut off.
Yep. So, I kept going.
You're a pro. Well done.
We just keep going, guys, don't we?
That's right. Well, and you know what? I'm just out at the lake, and my internet is wonky at best, and sometimes it's great, and sometimes not so much. So thank you for keep going. And Jake's saying something's wrong with the feed. We should be back now, though. Yes. I hope so. So good. But if there are questions, let me know. I'm going to encourage every person to register for the event if you know somebody. And I'm just, like, by the way, no money for this. Like, it's completely free. It's just, I know who the speakers are. I know the session you and I did around boundaries and setting them and upholding them and how critically valuable that is. And so I want to encourage everybody to do that because you can just watch them. They're coming out starting next, what day is it? Next Monday, right?
Monday the 11th. Yep.
Okay. So on Monday, they're going to start, and then they're going to go for 2 weeks, and you just get an email when it's happening, and you can join and then text with the people who are speaking. Anything else you want to say about that, like what they're going to learn or who they're going to hear from?
Yeah. So really the title of the summit is She's EmpowHERed. Powerfully step into your worthiness to create the confidence you crave. So we are talking about boundaries, like Allison said. We're also talking about mindset. We're talking about living an empowered life and also confidence, because a lot of us, we struggle with confidence, especially women. I know I certainly did. thank goodness for my mother. She worked with me a ton when I was a kid to start building my confidence. And really just in the last number of years, I've kind of taken that on to just be like, all right, I'm going to be confident in this and be courageous and be brave. So we're talking about some really amazing topics and just great points of view. We get to look at a lot of these through a different lens as we have different experts. So they each have a different take on these things, which is just huge because it really does cause things, they'll bring something up and it's like, wow, that really landed for me. And, you almost feel something kind of shift inside of you because you're like, wow, you mean I can do that? And it's like, yeah, you can. So cool.
That's awesome. Well, I'm really excited to be a part of it. And I know it's going to inspire thousands of people from around the world. And I'm going to ask each of you to register and share it with your networks, because I think you just said it earlier. You said like people desperately need this. There is so much negativity in the world. There are so many problems that people have. And I think this is why we're so aligned, is because we really are living our lives trying to help people be more inspired and more joyful and step into their brilliance and just all of those pieces of the puzzle. So I think that will be in a really great summit. It's virtual. You can watch in your comfies and it'll be just awesome. So there's the link. Go register. And, Jenny, I think for people, they're going to hear your story. And if they're sitting on the fence and thinking, you know what, I don't have time, or I don't have, I don't want to not have time for my kids because doing that side hustle, or I don't want to upset my work because I'm, doing this, right? Like you can still keep your security of your job and do something that lights you up in addition to, right? And I think you are living proof of that and are going to inspire people who might be on the fence. So really grateful to have you on the show. Thank you so much. And of course, you and I will be on camera together again on the 20th of April when my show on boundaries.
It's going to be so cool.
Airs. Yeah.
It's going to be amazing. Awesome. We had such a great talk. I'm so pumped to go back, and I'm going to rewatch all these too.
Yeah. And Jake's saying, you're so right, ladies. We like that. We are. Oh, yes. And, it's stepping out, stepping doing our thing, right?
Well, yeah, we're doing our thing. And, guess what? You can do it and be courageous and be brave. And if you're not doing it for yourself, do it for someone else, right? Like I do a lot of stuff. It's like, okay, you'll do anything for your kids, for your friend. And it's like, you know what? Also do something for yourself. So say yes to yourself. Say yes to, maybe you say, okay, I've got time to watch one interview today. Well, pick one. Pick the one that you like the title of, and then take something from that and put it in action. So that's the challenge. That's the invitation to you guys.
Awesome. Cool. All right. And Lori's there too.
Hi,
saying great conversation. Thank you. To each of you who shows up whenever I do these lives, I just love you and I'm so grateful for you, and thank you. And I hope you get a little bit out of it and share it with your friends. And I will see you at the summer summit, the She's EmpowHERed virtual summit. Jenny Stevens, thank you so much. And I hope everybody has a beautiful rest of the day.
All right. Thank you guys. And thank you, Allison. It was a pleasure being here.